I love Mondays with Mike Heller.
Broadcasting live from an undisclosed bunker in the Badger State. This is I Love Mondays with Mike Heller. Powered by determination and a little bit of duct tape. Here's your host, Mike Heller.
Okay, so welcome in on a Friday. That means we've almost made it through another week. And this is kind of the tip-off to one of my great months of the year. And I get it that it is March 13th. So think of this. Happy Friday the 13th. Think of this. Start March 10th or 11th and go to April 10th or 11th. And everything that's encompassed in that window. From the Players' Championship, golf guy, to the Masters, which will be going on a month from now at Augusta, Georgia, conference tournaments in college basketball, and then the NCAA Selection Sunday and the tournament underway, and the start of Major League Baseball. Not to be outdone, free agency in there in the National Football League. So everything, the only sport that doesn't capture me right now in this month is the finish to the NBA season, and the Bucks laid one again last night. So, I mean, kind of don't care. Actually, take away the kind of. Just don't care. And the Bucks are going to have to make a transition in this offseason. I think you're seeing the final 30 days of Giannis Antetokounmpo in a Bucks uniform. It's my opinion. We're not going to go there today, but just throwing that out there for future conversation. I think that is going to happen. But this is just such a great month, with the exception of the shitty weather going on this weekend into Monday. And by the way, a little bit later on, in just a few minutes, I'm going to bring in Nick Bruzewitz. It's an NG, the new guy, Friday. We had an OG, original gangster, old guy, original guy, however you want to phrase it, with Tom Oates on Wednesday. We'll do somebody else in that slot next Wednesday. And then I'm going to go to the young guns, the under 25 crowd-ish. Not checking birth certificates, but Nick is going to be that first guy there. Listen, Nick and I haven't appeared on a broadcast together since September the 2nd. And on September the 2nd, we didn't know that was it. We didn't know until later in the afternoon on September 2nd. So I'm going to bring him in a couple of minutes. And I just wanted to remind him, he can swear. It's a podcast. Don't get used to it because, you can't do that over the radio. And I only did it one time. And I was talking about my shitty fantasy football league team. And that's pretty much what I said. And I've never done it other than live on the radio, other than the one time, and it got dropped. There's a drop button in live radio that has about a 12-second delay that you can hit a drop button, and it catches up and eliminates anything in that 12-second window that was said. So it never made the air, but all those shows are podcasted, and I don't know if it made the podcast or not. That would have been Nick's job to take care of that. All right, so let's set up the day and what it is we're talking about today. So a few things at play. The Minnesota Vikings brought in Kyler Murray. He will be their backup quarterback. I can't tell you how a franchise went from playing to win the division in Detroit 15 months ago, with the second best record in the NFC, and laying an egg in that one with a quarterback that then this year won a Super Bowl, Sam Darnold. You didn't retain him. You didn't retain Daniel Jones, who was your backup quarterback. Instead, you put all your eggs in a very fragile basket that is led by J.J. McCarthy. And then he played injured and plays with some reckless abandon that put him in harm's way last year and just wasn't good enough. And they stunk. So you fire your GM. And what do you do in this offseason? You roll the dice with J.J. McCarthy getting a lot better for Kevin O'Connell, and you bring in Kyler Murray, who has a reputation on not being a guy who loves to hit the books. That might be fair, might be unfair. Don't know the guy that way, but certainly that was out there. They had incentives in his contract to study. That's a bad sign. He's your backup. They could have a year ago kept what they had in Sam Darnold, paid him a premium. They could have kept Daniel Jones, who just got transition tagged, who's better right now than J.J. McCarthy, some might argue, including my guest when we come back to him in a couple of minutes. But how did that franchise go from having the second best record in the NFC and on the rise to screwing it up so badly that if they don't have a decent season next year, let's say they finish fourth in the NFC North, which is entirely possible. They've already let their GM go. Is Kevin O'Connell next? And I would agree. I used to do a show with Bill Schmidt, and Bill thinks that Kevin O'Connell's the best coach in the division. At least he did think that. I don't want to put words in his mouth. Certainly liked him a lot as a coach. And I do too. But he's got to be part and parcel to the decision that brings Kyler Murray in. And I guess I don't get it. Think of what Minnesota could have done a year ago. They could have played in the Aaron Rodgers waters. They could have kept Sam Darnold, or they could have kept Daniel Jones. Instead, and to me, it smells a little bit of arrogance. The quarterback whisperer head coach and the GM put their eggs in the J.J. McCarthy basket. So that might be part of the conversation. The Packers still need a backup quarterback. I don't know where they go in that world, but we have felt very comfortable. Once we saw Malik Willis on the field in the 2024 season, we grew to be very comfortable that the Packers had a really good backup quarterback. Right now, they don't have a backup quarterback. So they're going to have to play that game in this offseason. Otherwise, there were no real moves, certainly nothing directly related to Green Bay. I wasn't a fan of the move that has Williams go to Seattle. He's not an RB1, but I thought he was a good RB2. I got some kickback from some on Twitter who said, he's not a good pass pro guy and he's not a good receiver out of the backfield. Just thought he was a really good number 2 running back. And then some think that he's a little too close to Josh Jacobs in style and that they need a different RB2 for a change of pace back. Okay, I get it. But Emmanuel Wilson is now gone in Seattle, and Green Bay is going to have to find who RB2 is. So there's some of that conversation. Otherwise, there was no real news out of Green Bay yesterday, just the news out of Minnesota that I just brought up. And I'm just curious if you are going to handicap the NFC North as we sit now. I said earlier this week, I would put the Bears at the top of the division. 1, they won it last year. 2, I think they're ascending. Green Bay is level, but with 8 starters being lost, essentially 8 starters being lost this week in free agency, many of them that they knew were going to happen. There's a bit of a revamp in Green Bay. Obviously, your core pieces there in Jordan Love. Your offensive line is in some transition. You got 3 guys that you decided, hey, we're going to anchor with these 3. But I don't know if the offensive line fills you with a ton of confidence. Wide receiver position is fine. Tucker Kraft coming back at tight end. You should be fine there. I know you lost Romeo Doubs when I say wide receiver is fine. That was a position group without a true one, but with a lot of depth. And I think Christian Watson has emerged, if he can be healthy, as close to a true one as you're going to get. And then on defense, you're going to have to count on the return to full ability of Micah Parsons. And you just think that there are certain athletes that attack recovery at a level that you believe in, that they're going to come back and be that guy. And I would believe that in Micah Parsons. But again, to go back and handicap the division, I'm going to put the Bears 1, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I would like the Packers to be 1, and I don't think they are as we sit today. They might make some other moves that could change my mind. I don't know. But if I were going to handicap it, I would put Bears 1, Packers 2. I would put Lions and Vikings. with a fairly significant step down to 3 and 4. So 1 and 2, Bears and Packers, and then skip a step on that ladder going down to Detroit, and then just below them, Minnesota. But if Minnesota actually sucks this year and they are more of a distant 4th place, then Kevin O'Connell, once thought to be a hell of a head coach, and that doesn't mean he's not, but his job could certainly be in jeopardy. And I think the same thing in Green Bay. We talked about this with Tom Oates on Wednesday, on an OG Wednesday. Even though they extended him, money's not the issue. If Matt LaFleur's Packers failed this year, he could certainly be out of a job. They just pay the buyout. Financial concerns there are not the number one concern for the Packers. It's having the right guy in the position, and I think that LaFleur is. However, if they were to fail this year, I think that would go away. So I think all of those things are in play. What else do we have? We have the Big Ten tournament, Wisconsin into the quarterfinals. They survived. They did not do a great job yesterday after they led by 18. I think it is human nature. I was talking with Courtney, who was our super fan in this week on Wednesday, and I talked to Courtney. I said, they got up 18 and they stopped playing offense. They started to not go in transition, especially in the last 5 minutes. They gave up transition opportunities and pulled it back. And I think it's hard to reaccelerate after you've slowed down. And I thought the Badgers slowed down. Probably not a great idea to do that, but it's what happened. We'll see. I want to ask this question. So James says, Mike, I know you I love Mondays. This upcoming Monday might be different. Is that a weather question? Yeah, right. Well, I mean, the fortunate thing is even on Monday, if you're talking about weather, I do the show indoors, so shouldn't be an issue. And then Alex says, I think there's a far better chance the Bears finish last in the North than first. Alex, that seems to me to be an emotional message that you send into the show, not one based in any reality. Good coach, motivational coach. Don't love him, but I think he's a good coach. And they've got a quarterback that might be great. He's certainly showed signs of greatness, might be great rolling forward. Don't know. We'll find out. So, yeah, I would install the Bears as the favorite. All right, back on to the Badgers quarterfinal round against Illinois. They're going to face an Illini team that they beat in overtime 92-90 back in early February. But that team was without Boswell and Stojakovic in that game. They both averaged 13.5 points per game. I would think Wisconsin is going to be without Nolan Winter. I don't think that's in yet, but I would think that they're going to be cautious there. And I would add one other thing about the Badgers, the first of the quarterfinal games today, or the second of the quarterfinals. Ohio State and Michigan open. After Wisconsin and Illinois, it will be Purdue, Nebraska, and then the nightcap is UCLA, Michigan State into Saturday's semifinals. And that's the last game. Those semifinals tomorrow in the Big Ten tournament are the last ones that matter to the selection committee. I'll just remind you of that, because when the selection committee goes to make their seed line decisions on Sunday, they essentially ignore the Big Ten championship game. It ultimately doesn't matter. They lock in, they hard pencil in their seed lines before Sunday. And unless something extraordinary happened in that moment, those games don't matter. The Sunday Big Ten championship game doesn't matter. It's an auto bid, but everybody that's in that game is going into the tournament regardless. All right, so I wanted to make sure we covered off on some of that ground. I want to tell you quickly about our sponsors. Our I Love Monday program is presented by M3 Insurance. And I've said this, and I will continue to say it because I think it's important. When we talk about our sponsors, I appreciate them for their support of the podcast. And I appreciate you, the viewers and listeners to the podcast, for helping make this possible. But I also need you, when you can, to support these sponsors. M3 Insurance They help businesses and individuals manage risk, purchase insurance, and provide the right benefits to their employees, leveraging digital product and program solutions to protect and serve clients across the country. They equip their clients with the tools and guidance needed to confidently navigate insurance and risk management decisions for your companies. So if you're in that position, if your company is looking to better themselves as it relates to employee benefits and risk management and insurance, reach out to m3ins.com. That's the site you go to, m3ins.com. Also presented by the Neuroscience Group, excellence in brain, spine, and pain care. Choose Neuroscience Group in Northeast Wisconsin, neurosciencegroup.com. If back pain is holding you back, at Neuroscience Group, their spine specialists offer personalized care from therapy to advanced surgical options so you can get back to doing what you love. Neuroscience Group, neurosciencegroup.com. We've got your back. Also brought to you in part by Potawatomi Sportsbook, Hotel, and Casino in Milwaukee. Now, they don't put out lines on in-state college games. So Wisconsin is not on a you can't pick up a line at Potawatomi. Last check that I saw, Illinois was favored in this game by 8.5. But when we go to having lines, every odds lines, they're coming to us from our sportsbook, the official sportsbook of I Love Mondays. That is Potawatomi Sportsbook and Casino. And this program is also presented by Habish and Rotier. All of our injury updates here, including mine, are brought to you by Habish and Rotier, 13 locations to ensure you get a hometown attorney who understands your life and the impacts of your injury and is personally committed to your recovery. All right. So we welcome in, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do that. We welcome in Nick Brusewitz to the program. I add him to the show. There he is. I can see him. I think he can hear me.
I can hear you.
And we can hear you.
That's good.
Listen, those are dramatic improvements from what I did yesterday when I brought in Vinny Rottino to the show. Nick Brusewitz, young man, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. This is nice as I get to bust out my equipment I haven't used in 6 years and use it here. And
6 years.
You
were 11.
That's true. I was an early starter in this industry, Mike. That's how you land the job you do. And I did. You made me sit here and listen through all of that. I'm on the edge of my seat wanting to talk about Kyler Murray. I'm on the edge of my seat talking about the Vikings. You know where I stand on JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, where do you stand on JJ McCarthy? Remind for those who didn't listen back in the iHeart days years ago when you and I did a show together.
Yeah, that's right. I'm a big JJ McCarthy guy. I think I was the guy that was kind of tooting his horn and talking about him all day long, saying how he's going to be a good player and in the offense with the coach he has. So not good. The best part about what the Vikings did and what I would say is most troublesome is that they were 9-8. They had the same amount of wins as the Green Bay Packers, and they had arguably the worst quarterback situation in the entire NFL. They had Carson Wentz, JJ McCarthy, Max Brosmer, JJ McCarthy again. And now you said backup. I think that maybe you're being too kind. I think Kyler will be their starter.
What?
I think Kyler Murray is going to be the starter.
Kyler Murray is QB1 in Minnesota.
I think it's hard to not say that that's the case because
I just thought you were a JJ McCarthy guy. I mean, you're all locked in on McCarthy.
I think that what I believe would have been more beneficial for a guy like JJ McCarthy is if he was put in a Packers type situation where he was able to sit and learn behind somebody. What he did in his rookie season was rehab and injury and then essentially enter last season as a rookie. You made mention of that many times on the program that he's practically a rookie, and I would push back and be like, no, he's a second-year quarterback.
Yeah.
And he was put in a spot where he wasn't ready for it, and now it's a matter of if he will ever be ready for it. And I think Kyler's got a chip on his shoulder. I would anticipate he ends up being their starter.
See, I called Jordan Love a rookie in his fourth year. And because it was the first time he was going to be under center or in the shotgun on a regular basis and leading an offense, and he was QB1, and I saw that as his rookie year. So if we go back, I don't want to relitigate. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the Minnesota Vikings.
You're fine.
Because, to be honest, I don't much care other than that they are in the division. But if we relitigate what they did, I don't think you could have messed it up worse. You had Sam Darnold. You could have paid him the money, and then you don't, and he goes to Seattle and wins the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
You had Daniel Jones as a backup, and he leaves, and now he's transition tagged to be the quarterback in Indy. And you go to J.J. McCarthy, and although he did show signs, showing signs isn't enough in the NFL. And they rolled the dice with him. It cost their GM his job, right? I mean, GM gets canned, and I think that's the reason that he's out is because of that. And now you sit here and you do get Kyler Murray for nothing, right? Because Arizona's paying almost all of his money. I think Minnesota
league minimum
for $2 million.
League minimum for it's like 1 point something million. It's some ridiculously low figure, and that it's a problem in the NFL now, or maybe kind of a modern day aspect of it, because Tua's being paid by Miami, Geno's being paid by Las Vegas, Kirk is going to be paid by Atlanta, and they're all not on those teams. I mean, Aaron last year with the Steelers was paid, majority chunk by New York. It's a death sentence if you're signing major contracts for guys that clearly aren't up for it. And for what it's worth, I think Minnesota is probably going to be in the same tier as the Packers and Bears. I mean, it's just, for me, and maybe it's overzealous, maybe I'm naive, I do believe that the only thing that they needed to be better at was having a competent quarterback. And Kyler, to my eyes, appears to be that guy if he ends up getting that job. So I think it's going to be a very competitive division. People will forget Detroit finished in last place. I mean, 9-8. There were a billion teams there at 9-8 in the NFC, 2 of which were in the North. Packers with the tie were slightly above them. I think the Bears are going to be regressing, at least in terms of winning games in the final seconds, as your listener just messaged in. It's a very intriguing division, very exciting time. And I just feel like the Packers right now have kind of stood pat. And I guess for what it's worth, they were in the thick of it last year.
I don't love their offseason so far. Let me just say that about the Packers. I don't hate it. I'm sort of ambivalent. I think they have slightly less than treaded water. I think they've taken on just a little water and they knew all the starters that were going to leave. They knew that they were going to lose Rasheed Walker. They knew they were going to lose Elton Jenkins. They knew that they would lose Quay Walker. I didn't know that they obviously made a trade on sending Wooden away to Indianapolis to get Zaire Franklin. They'd made the decision to cut with Nate Hobbs. They knew that Romeo Doubs was going to find somebody with a pretty big bag of money to pay him. So they knew all these things. There's like essentially eight starters that were in Green Bay a year ago that won't be there next year. And in that, they've replaced with Zaire Franklin, and I like him. I like him as a leader, but I don't think he's as good. I said this yesterday. I went on a podcast in Las Vegas talking about the Raiders, and I said the Packers fans are going to miss Quay Walker because Quay Walker, I think, is going to be a very good linebacker. Now, I'm not saying Green Bay should have played the game with Quay Walker now, Nick, but they could have played the game with him a year ago. They would have had to have extended him during the season or before last season, and they chose not to. And then at that point, they're going to lose him.
And I think that Packers fans, I can certainly palate the loss of Walker. I think that people were certainly underwhelmed with how he performed in his career in Green Bay. I think the expectations were high, and he maybe never could have lived up to them because of, many people always feel Packers reach for players or that the players they take are the wrong ones. They like to play hindsight and say, well, this guy was on the board when they took this guy. But Quay leaving, Zaire coming in, he ain't as good as he once was, but he was good once. Let's hope he can kind of squeeze a couple of years here in Green Bay out of what was his past. Javon Hargrave, I think that's a valuable addition, though he is north of 30. So there's some age concerns there. Benjamin St. Juste, you bring him in. Hobbs just signed with the 49ers this morning. So someone took a flyer on Nate Hobbs. Rasheed Walker is still out there. There was some reporting this last couple of days that the market for him is not as abundant as they thought. So chances are he's going to sign a 1-year deal.
His agent would be surprised too. I think
Right.
a lot of people thought he was going to get a big ACH deposit right away.
That's not what happened.
And it didn't happen. Right now, he's I don't know that he's broke, but he doesn't have any new money today, right?
Right. I would wonder if the Packers, I mean, if it's going to be a 1-year deal, if it's going to be a bargain shopping opportunity, I mean,
No.
Do you not bring him back?
No.
You think Jordan Morgan's going to be the guy at left tackle? I mean, do you
Jordan
think
Morgan
they have
is the left tackle? That's the only reason they did all of this, is that they believe Jordan Morgan is not just their left tackle this coming year, but their left tackle for the next 3 to 5 years. So
I would hope so, right? They take him in the first round. You know, we were at Buffalo Wild Wings trying to figure out technical difficulties at that moment. But
you remember that one, huh?
I mean, I was very frustrated. You remember fondly, I'm sure, of me for 4 hours trying to put us back on air.
Yeah.
I can't let it go.
There. Never got on air that night.
I don't think Jordan Morgan was the right pick then. I don't know if he is the right guy, but they sure need to prove it. Let him get a chance to do so. But yeah, to your point, I mean, the Packers have seen a lot of talented players walk out the door. And it was the expectation that would likely be the case. It's just about developing those that had lesser opportunities last year. Matthew Golden is the most obvious. Every fan wants to see more of him on the field. Well, you would imagine that happens now. No more Romeo Doubs on the field. So that should be helpful. You see Tucker Kraft, in addition from within. You anticipate, as you made mention of Micah Parsons, that, you know, some of these elite athletes, these best amongst their positions, come back at, you know, equal level to what they left, or as close as possible. I mean, Adrian Peterson tore an ACL and came back and won MVP, nearly rushing for NFL record in yards. So you cross your fingers there. I just wonder, you know, you'd think that they're going to address some of the holes on their roster in the draft, but they don't have a first rounder anymore. So, I mean, Goody's going to have one of his classes that pans out.
Well, and they've got cap space with the other. So I thought maybe they might be a player with somebody of significance on the free agent market this week, but I don't know how many are left that would be of significance. And, you know, Courtney, who was on Superfan Wednesday, he had suggested, well, maybe Trey Hendrickson. Well, that didn't happen. I mean, he got too much money to change teams in the division. So that wasn't in play. Max Crosby staying in Las Vegas, you would think, and, you know, kind of rehabbing from an injury, all that kind of stuff. I don't know where Green Bay makes a move. I always have FOMO when somebody else does something. And I like that San Francisco went and got Mike Evans. From their perspective, how about going to get Nate Hobbs? Nate Hobbs was disappointing in Green Bay. How much of the disappointment was injury? How much of the, you know, and St. Juste is not an everyday corner. He's a special teamer and, you know, an extra corner, but Green Bay is kind of treating him coming in like maybe with what they have out there that he's he's a number 2 corner. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's a new defensive scheme,
right?
In general. I mean, Jonathan Gannon comes in, the Packers are going to be undergoing some change, you'd imagine, in terms of how they operate in their personnel. Gannon's a good defensive coordinator, but he wasn't a great head coach. I saw you pop up that Darren message earlier about Kyler Murray.
There it is. Darren said, Nick, see, this is just like the radio show we used to do. Now, Nick, did you watch the Cardinals play at all? Murray has not been it for the last 2 or 3 years. Offense did nothing last year until Brissett took over. All right, Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, you anticipate that. And maybe it's just kind of feeling like this is how the world works now, that when you get out of the negative situation, the Cardinals are the worst team in NFL history. Like, people may not recognize that. They have the worst winning percentage of all of the NFL teams ever. They have a terrible ownership group. They clearly have gone through head coaches too quickly. I mean, Kyler Murray's in a position now where he's going to hopefully have the stability he's never had in his career. And it wasn't too long ago that he was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And however you want to quantify that, top half, top 10. I mean, he took the Cardinals to a playoff. They lost to the Cowboys. But you look at them and you say that's an organization that is dysfunctional to the highest degree. Kyler Murray was the first overall pick. If Sam Darnold can do it, I would anticipate a guy that was drafted first overall is in a similar boat. If Kyler Murray is, 50% better than what J.J. McCarthy was this past year, you're talking about 2 more wins, probably. That's an 11-win team. So I get it. You're down on Kyler. People have been down on Baker in recent years, and then he has a resurgence. Geno Smith had a resurgence. These are guys that people wanted to count out and move off of, and they've clearly become much more significant players in the league after those had been completely out on them.
Yeah, it is. So I did this. So I'm going to have you do this little exercise to go 1 through 4 in the NFC North final division standings in 2026 as we sit now. I would go Chicago, Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota 1 through 4.
Yeah, I'm fairly comfortable saying that I think the Bears are going to regress, and I think that the Packers, I don't know where they've gotten better. So it's such a hard problem. It's such a hard, it's hypothetical. My opinion is that I think the Vikings are going to win 2 more games. And with Kyler Murray, I think that they have every opportunity to hopefully capture some of what they had 2 years ago. My opinion is that it's going to be Bears, Vikings, Packers, Lions. I think that the Bears are your 1.
Wow,
Vikings
you
are
have the
2.
Packers in 3rd place.
I think that
that's probably not a playoff team.
It may not be. And last year I was kind of low on them. I think we had this conversation. We did our who's a guarantee to make the playoffs in each conference. And I went back months later and I looked at it and I was not particularly sharp. But Packers were not a guarantee for me. And they once again finished as the 7th seed. So they have not shown that they've gotten better so far this offseason. So I think the Vikings
I would add this in. Now, I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs. I do think, but if you have them 3rd in the division and they miss the playoffs, I'm of this opinion, and I don't know that what would change this opinion. If they don't make the playoffs, I think that Matt LaFleur is going to be gone in Green Bay. Even though they just extended him, I don't think that matters. If they fail to make the playoffs, I think he'll be gone.
I agree. I think that Matt LaFleur is in a position where they have to prove that they are progressing, that they are getting better. They won playoff game in the first year with Jordan Love as your quarterback, as the 7 seed on the road at the 2 seed. You had every opportunity to beat the Niners the next week and advance to the NFC Championship game. And in the last 2 years, you found creative ways to put in really little to no inspiration to how you're going into the offseason. The first one, you get crushed by the Eagles. You understand that team ends up winning a Super Bowl, and they were so dominant on their way to doing it. But last year, you lose like that to the Bears. You have to have something this year that inspires.
Nick, let's transition into the Big Ten tournament. So on the Badger Radio Network, you do the post-game show, although I had a hard time getting it yesterday after. Did you guys have some technical issues?
Yeah, there were some problems happening. Okay. There were some problems for sure.
You got it figured out?
I hope so. We had a different producer in there yesterday. Our regular Casey James was unavailable. And there was some, to peel back the curtain and use words that people probably won't recognize. There were some relay issues between Milwaukee and Madison, and breaks being fired.
You got to hit the relay, man. In the chest is good, and let that person then catch and then make the relay throw. And if you miss the relay, if you bounce that and it kicks away, which is what happened on the postgame show yesterday. So in other words, I didn't get to hear it. I was trying to tune in. Wisconsin. Let's talk about yesterday a little bit. I thought it was a human nature game, and I think you see it in conference tournaments and sometimes even in the NCAA tournament. Wisconsin had a comfortable lead against a team they just blew out in Seattle a week and a half ago. They were up 18 with 14 minutes to play, and I thought they took their foot off the accelerator, thinking that they could afford to. Human nature. And then it almost bit them. But here's the cool thing. It didn't. Survive and advance. It's a cliche. Cliches have reasons because they're oftentimes so true. Survive and advance. That's what they did. They got incredible play out of the backcourt in John Blackwell and Nick Boyd. They didn't get very much from the front court, somewhat expected without Nolan Winter. but Rapp and Biliauskas did not have great days. In fact, I don't know. Did they have any other double-digit scorers other than Blackwell and Boyd?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. All right, so they beat Illinois back in early February, second week of February, 92-90 in overtime in Champaign. No Boswell, no Stojakovic. They both average almost 13.5 points per game. What has to happen today, Nick, on this? Because this Illinois team is better than the one, healthier than the one Wisconsin played in Champaign.
Well, you need to do what you did the last time around, which is shoot lights out. I mean, that's been Wisconsin's recipe to success this year. They have one win having scored 78 or fewer points, right? That's their threshold. You got to score a bunch of points, and they've been successful in doing that this year. I look at Illinois. I would argue that they're just as good as Michigan at their full health now. I know that Michigan is clearly the class of the conference and very well could just run the table and take this conference tournament. But you need to have some level of exactly what you saw yesterday, because I do expect Nolan Winter to be unavailable. I know that's not official, but there really isn't much of an upside to bringing him back for this one, because ultimately what matters most is coming up in about a week. You look at what Illinois can offer, though. They had Tomislav Ivicic score, I think, 23 or 24 points in the first half in the first matchup with Wisconsin. And that was with a healthy Nolan Winter. So you're talking about the big on the other side against our best big, puts up 24 roughly. And then the second half, for whatever reason, they went away from him. Keaton Wagler was just lights out, truly unconscious, but the Badgers were able to answer every blow. It seems like this team steps up for big games. I would anticipate this one doesn't get out of hand, but 8.5-point underdog, as you referenced earlier. You look at a rested and healthy Illinois team versus a short and, on 1 day rest Wisconsin team, no rest. I don't know how Wisconsin wins this one, but if they're going to win it, it would be because they score 85, 90 points like they did last time around.
Yeah, they're going to have to do that. I got this note in from my guy, Packers Tods and Ends, on my Twitter account. He said, love the podcast with the gent with the gray hair and tons of memorabilia and the young Spike Buck with bare walls in behind him.
That's right.
But you're at home. I mean, you're in the apartment, and
it's kind of been
a studio set up there.
It's been a sort of a debate amongst the few friends that have been here, like that. It looks like Abby and I just moved in, and we've been here for 9 months. So, I mean, I'm not one for decorating walls, and she is a very much a second guesser and a planner. So she's like, we're not going to put anything up until we know it. But I got this. Shoulder. I got this mirror. I mean, there's a mirror right there.
Really nice mirror. Yeah,
there's
I like that. Of all the mirrors I've seen today, that one is pretty good.
It's a nice mirror. It's maybe a little tall. She put it up. She's 5'3". It doesn't necessarily work well for her, but it works for me. To peel back the curtain a little bit, I'm using her little. I got a ring light, but it's actually her makeup one. Her little makeup mirror. Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, we're making it work. I still live that lifestyle of a young gun.
Yeah, you're a kid, and listen, I'll say this because I love what you do, and I hope that we find you back on the radio on a regular basis, not just on post-game shows that can be hit or miss technically. But I hope we find you back on the radio because I really enjoy what you do, and I enjoyed working with you. That's right. You're my first NG guest, the new guy, the new gangsta.
I appreciate that. Many people call me a gangster. It's just, I drip gangster as I walk around.
And ripping. You were part of you were the gang.
You and I both on the wrong side of the train tracks, Is
that what it was?
We made it out.
We did. Back on Wisconsin, the bracket matrix right now, which is the compilation of all of the brackets that are out there. It's at the aggregate of all of them, has them as the number 2 on the 6 line. Yeah. If they win today, there's a fair shot that they could be a 5 seed. I don't know that 6 or 5 matters much because it really ends up being about who your matchup is in your second game, even in your first game. I think Wisconsin did from Nick what they needed to do from 3 weeks ago was get off the 8 or 7 line, which is I think where they were. I think they were a 7, 8, 9 seed, and they needed to get off that. And I wasn't doing the podcast yet, but in my head, I'm saying, you got to win. And I didn't know that they could do it. I didn't know that they could get that win at Purdue, which was the one that the loss at Oregon. I thought, shoot, that's gonna kill them. And then they win at Washington, and then you win the road game at Purdue. To me, they're no worse than a 6. I don't care what happens today. They're no worse than a 6. If they lose today, put them in on a 6 seed line. Win today, maybe you move them up to 5. I think in either case, all we're looking at then is the matchup, and they've done their job from 3 weeks ago, which was to get off the 7, 8, 9 line.
Yeah, this is a team I tweeted out after one of the recent games, I think having beaten Purdue, and I said, what a fantastically weird season, because, they found ways to beat Michigan State, Illinois, and Purdue, but they also lost to Ohio State and Oregon. And it's like, who is this team? And that's kind of been how it's gone the entire season. I'm wholeheartedly with you. I thought with a win yesterday, they're 6. I think that there are fans out there who want them to stay a 6 opposed to being a 5 because
they're worried about 5-12.
Right. And they'd also look at, that side of the bracket. You ultimately would match up with the 1 seed on your way to the final, to the Elite 8, right? I mean, in the Elite 8, if I'm not mistaken, if you're a 5. So you got an opportunity here or in the Sweet 16, excuse me. You have, as a 6, you would play 6-11. And then last year as a 3, you lose to BYU, who was a very talented team in a road environment that was practically a home environment for the Cougars. So, you might want that path. I don't care really what the path is. I want to see them finish this particular game. If they lose today and they get blown out, I'm going to have a far different perspective on their path ahead if they win or if they're close than they would if I saw them get crushed. So I like what they have. I like that this team is pretty resilient. Yesterday's performance, I talk about it a lot. You made mention of it, human nature. I always was like that. I playing video games with my buddies. If I was up big, I'd let them back into it, and then I'd lose, and then I'd be really pissed. And then I'd be like, I let you win. And they'd be like, no, you didn't. So that's exactly what Wisconsin avoided yesterday. They won the game, so they don't have to deal with that. And I think that is, if you look at how this season has played out versus how we thought it might play out after some of those early season, really brutal losses, you got to take it and you got to run with it. Because I think at this point, they're the most talented offensive team that I think Greg Gard has had. And if you have that, you have a lot to work with. It's just a matter of defensively getting that consistent effort.
Let me ask you a question. It's kind of out of the blue. I didn't set you up for this one. If you could, in theory, make a trade, would you trade Nick Boyd for John Tonje today?
No, I don't think so. And I do think John Tonje is the more prolific player. I think that John is going to have a more successful post-Badgers career, and that's not a knock on Nick. That's a feather in the cap of my guy, John Tonje. But how they're operating, how this team is built, having that guy with the ball in his hands that can push the tempo, that can drive to the bucket, that can change the game, I think that he's a better match for what they're looking to accomplish this season. Tonje did everything he could last year. I mean, he went out on a bang. I mean, he had a chance to take care of business against BYU with that final shot, but no one's faulting him for a performance like that in a game like that. But yeah, I'm not trading Nick Boyd at this point with how the season has gone out. He has, I think, matched, if not exceeded, Alondo Tucker's points, 20-point games this season. I don't know if that carries into the postseason, but at the end of the regular season, he was at 19, so he would be tied now with 20-plus point games. The record is 20 by Alondo Tucker in one season. So, I mean, you got to roll with the guys.
My other podcast, my Badger Connect podcast, went live yesterday. I had a sit down with Nick Boyd that we did on Monday. For those who didn't see it, badgerconnect.com. It's really good. He's a fantastic interview. He's an open book. He says, he answers all the questions. He doesn't walk around. It's not political speak. He doesn't just give you cliches. He's a really good interview. And I would back up one moment on that and say that what Wisconsin did 2 years in a row now in the addition, you could go back to AJ Storr and say 3 years in a row, but AJ was more of a get his guy, I think. And Tanjay and Nick Boyd, 3 consecutive years, and more so the last 2 years in Tanjay and Boyd. That is outstanding work by Greg Gard and his staff to identify a player that's going to be on the market, and then that the fit is going to work, and you bring him in, and the guy's got to be willing to, he's got to be a willing learner, because he's got to learn what they're going to do and be coached. Tanjay wanted to be coached. Nick Boyd wants to be coached. They have done a fantastic job, Nick Bruisewoods, of bringing in 2 guys in back-to-back seasons that have been perfect for the time and what the program is needed.
You know, I'm young, I'm naive. You know, last year I said Tanjay maybe top 5 season ever in, Badger men's basketball, right? Just because of how quickly he had such an impact. You know, Boyd is right there. I mean, it's hard to differentiate. You see an eyelash of difference in one category or the other, but credit to Coach Gard and his staff. And it's not just those 3, because I will count AJ Storr, because I do think that was, if you want to put it into a baseball analogy, that's probably a ground rule double, right? And then you hit a home run and a home run back-to-back years, or a grand slam and a grand slam with Tanjay and Boyd. But Andrew Rohde this season, Braden Carrington this season, I mean, these are 2 significant additions via the portal. You look at Austin Rapp, what he's done. I know he's probably been slightly underwhelming for some, but when he's right, when he scores double digits, they're undefeated. So you look at what they've done just this season, not to mention in the past, even preceding, you guy like AJ Storr, to get Max Klesmit. I know he's a hometown guy, but you get him in the portal and he becomes a fixture of your program for 4 years. Kamari McGee, UW Green Bay edition, and how big was he last season and the year before? So I can't be more impressed by how quickly they have found the recipe here in the transfer portal, because you look at other programs and they can't get it right. I mean, Indiana this year was supposed to be a big bad team, new coach with his son on the team, and they fall flat. So yeah, absolutely one of the more remarkable trends currently in college basketball is that Wisconsin seems to be a destination for some of the best players. And on Butchie's Den this week, Gard joined Brian, and he was asked about, Brian asked, what are kind of some of the struggles you have in recruiting now? Because it used to be, I don't want to play with Wisconsin's slow pace and their offense that is not going to let me shine. And Gard said, really, the only problem we're having now is, for some reason, some of these guys are saying, no, Gard's going to leave and take another job with a blue blood. And I was
He's not going anywhere.
He's not going to go anywhere, but it's a good problem to have. It's a luxury to have a coach that people anticipate, I don't know, replacing being the next head coach at Kentucky or going to North Carolina. I mean, blue bloods are not many, and they're all the best programs ever.
Yeah. By the way, the answer to this question is me, Alex in Antioch.
Probably.
Who would we? Because you're not a Flip Cup guy. I mean, to me, that says that Alex didn't listen when we were doing the show together. Because Nick's not a bar game, drinking game guy. So have you played Flip Cup?
I have played Flip Cup. I would say I'm average at best. I mean, nothing spectacular. If I'm going to drink, which it's been, it's probably been a couple years now. When I would drink, if there was a game involved, I was far more interested. So Flip Cup. I mean, I guess this is a podcast. Bitch Cup was one we played.
Oh, yes. Was like unfamiliar. OGs don't play Bitch Cup. So apparently,
maybe you called it something else, but you start with a 30, 40 red Solo cups filled, maybe a fifth full of whatever alcohol. And you have one person with a ping pong ball and a red Solo cup, and they have to bounce it and land it in while the other person is trying to do the same. So you're like right next to each other.
I got you.
If the person behind you does it before you, they stack you.
Oh.
You grab a drink, you have to drink it and keep going.
You can't play that game, Nick.
And long story short, the bitch cup is the one in the middle at the end that's like a complete just hodgepodge of whatever random liquors and beers and crap you have.
Not a game you or I should play. No.
Well,
at all.
Absolutely. It's fun, but you don't want to be that one with that last cup.
Yeah. Yeah, you better have a lot of confidence. By the way, we never got to finish some of those contests that we were going to have. Like,
that's right.
Who could throw the football further? You were working with a coach, Killebrew.
That's right.
On trying to maximize your throw distance.
You did get you beat me in the pitch speed at Brewapalooza.
Yes.
Yeah. I news to me that you don't grip the ball really hard. I mean,
grip. When you overgrip it, that's called a change of grip.
I was squeezing the ball as hard as I could because we're very fortunate that no one got hurt that day, and Billy, would have been the culprit in that case. I mean,
Billy Schmid could have sent somebody to the hospital on the throw that he made that missed the screen and bounced, and it had a little juice on it, and it barely missed a person. And that person wasn't looking. Side of the head, that person goes in an ambulance.
And that was my fear. And for those that are unfamiliar, we had this station-wide opportunity to go to a Brewers game and host a tailgate, and we had the pitch radar out there, and they lined up like a tunnel of people, like maybe 5 feet to each side of me.
Those people weren't being all that smart either. They have been maybe overserved or undervalued how bad some of our throwers were going to be.
Well, and that was why I gripped it as hard as I did. I mean, I was freaking out that I was just going to beat somebody. So you beat me in that one. Yeah. I think the punt catching and the 99 100-mile-an-hour fastball one that we like, these are just hypothetical. We could do the punt one just fine. I don't think either of us are in any position to get behind a 100-mile-an-hour fastball.
You mean as a catcher?
Yeah.
Dude, I just did fantasy camp, and catching a high-speed fastball is not going to be a problem. Would not be a problem.
I'm sure. I mean, what were you catching? How fast are these pitches
50,
coming?
55. Doubling it.
You put me in the gear, that's fine. I mean, I guess I'd be okay.
I would not trust you in that gear. That's not a contest I would have with you because I don't think there's enough gear to protect you.
Well, I was a little league umpire for many summers, and I took plenty of pitches to the chest.
46-mile-an-hour fastballs, but,
right to the shin.
45 feet, so it hurts a little bit more.
That's right. But
hey, thanks for doing this. I'm going to reserve the right to bring you back at another day, and I hope that something good happens here in the news department. So I'm not going to ask you to, unless there's news you want to tell us.
No news, but okay. I'm still around. I'm still hanging out. We're doing our thing. It's a challenging industry. Certainly more than I do. You try to impart wisdom on me, but until I live through it, I would never learn. So, we talked about it. I feel like we probably had equally as challenging Septembers. You know what I mean? You were let go, but I had to watch you leave, and I had to be the one to sit there without you. I mean, it's more emotionally hard for the guy that keeps his job and sticks around. Yeah, than the guy who's muzzled for 6 months.
Right? Yeah, they did. Muzzles are no fun. So I'm through the muzzle stage now, and I appreciate you doing this. Nick Osen's going to be doing one of these. I'm going to get a list of guys from you, the 25 and under crowd. Osen doesn't fit that though, does he? He's
no. We like to pick on him. I think he's 29. I think.
Yeah, he's the OG of the NGs.
Yeah, he's a great dude. I think that your listeners in your audience, if unfamiliar, will be spoiled with his breadth of knowledge on specifically the Badgers. He's a Bears guy, so you can.
I didn't. Yeah. Okay. Well, then maybe not.
Well, you bring him on and you pick on him, and he's like probably the easiest dude to pick on because he's like going to be like laughing the whole time and telling you that you're the best. So yeah, Nick Osen's great. There are plenty of young, talented people in this market, but it's smart to start with me because then you can then go down the ladder from best to individually to the worst.
Yeah, on the way out. So Darren wanted to, he never got to hear about your tears and whining after the Brewers beat the Cubs in Game 5. I didn't really directly either. You okay? Have you recovered?
No,
and by the way, good. Were you and Killebrew? Sean Killebrew is a sales guy at iHeart who's also huge as a Bears and Cubs fan. Nick is a Cubs fan, not a Bears fan.
Right.
Just to set the record straight. But when Pete Crow Armstrong homered twice in the attempted comeback for Team USA, have you guys calmed down yet from the future first ballot Hall of Famers performance a few nights ago?
I mean, gosh, Pete is such a beast. It's nice to see, at that level that he can perform like that. It inspires hope. Last season was a little bit of a backslide for him. Terang's been outstanding. This World Baseball Classic has been certainly in the headlines recently. Mark DeRosa with a couple of mistakes as manager. But from the Cubs fan tier perspective, that was the day that Wisconsin got shut out at home by Iowa. I think it was 34 or 31-0. So I'm in the booth doing the post-game show with Billy. I had to fill in for Lance. And Luddy, our producer back in Milwaukee, Andrew Ludwig, is just playing Brewers highlights in and out of the breaks on the Badgers post-game. So it was kind of a double whammy, man. I watched my team lose in person. I'm a Badger. I watched them lose in the worst possible way. And then the Cubs had lost. But I'll say this, Cubs won more playoff games last year than the Brewers did. So, I mean,
suddenly I'm losing you. What?
You what? I mean, the Cubs won 4 playoff games. How many did the Brewers win?
I have the control of your audio, so I just brought your mic down to 0. So nobody can hear you right now. And with that, hey, that's a podcast error right there. I can't believe you just did that to my podcast. Okay, I'll let you say goodbye. Get out of here.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Mike. It's nice to catch up. It's always great to be on air with you. I miss doing it every day. Maybe we'll cross paths down the road again. Who knows? It's a weird industry just in terms of a fixture. But, maybe I could get used to this. Maybe I could launch a rival podcast.
Don't be competing.
Mine will just be all about Cubs.
Oh, yeah, that's not going to go anywhere. Hey, thanks. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Of course, Mike. Looking forward to the next time we get to do it.
All right, sounds good. Nick Bruzewitz, I take him out of the show kind of like that. And that's – listen, fun for me, Nick and I working together from the beginning, and it was, an arranged on-air marriage. I didn't know Nick. I mean, honestly, the first time we had really had any conversation was on the air. And he's a year older than my youngest child. I mean, my son Jackson's 23. I think Nick is 24. So I could have that wrong, but I mean, he's just a little bit older than my kid. And I had to grow into him, but he made that very possible because he's actually, I shouldn't say it that way. He's very talented. He's very good at what he does, and he does have a bright future if he wants to continue through what can be a very volatile industry in the sports talk realm right now. But Nick is smart, well-opinioned, really good actually in interviews. And then I use the term actually again. I shouldn't be surprised at any of this. He's a really good interviewer. He relates to Badger players when he gets to do their interviews. Talented young man who's got a bright future in whatever he chooses to do, but certainly in the media world, in the sports world, he's got that. I wanted to add a couple of thoughts on the way out. It is, did you see, here's my bottoms. I got a bottoms going in. Big 12 got rid of their LED glass court for their conference tournament. I mean, kind of a cool idea because they could show graphics on the court. They could light the court. They could do all these different things. But they didn't think about its grip, that it can be slippery, that the players who have never played on this, all of a sudden in their conference tournament, they're going to play on a plexiglass LED court. So they got rid of it. I applaud opportunity when people and businesses try to innovate, but maybe don't innovate in an exhibition game. Innovate in a holiday tournament, a 2-day holiday tournament kind of a thing. Innovating at your conference tournament when real stuff is at stake, maybe not such a great idea. All right, Badgers go today against the Illini. This can be a tough one, but if Wisconsin wins, I think they move up a seed line for the NCAA tournament. They're a 6 right now, solid. If they lose today, they're a 6. If they win today, they might move to the 5 line, which is a benefit. I know people get worried and freaked out about 5-12 in the NCAA tournament, but I think Wisconsin can get to the 5 seed line if they win today. They're an 8.5-point underdog on ESPN. Normally on lines, we go to Potawatomi because they are our official sports book on I Love Mondays with Mike Heller, but they don't give in-state lines for Wisconsin and Marquette. And I understand why. But think of 8.5-point Illinois is favored because that's the matchup gap in this one. But Wisconsin can beat anybody. Backcourt plays well. Nolan Winter is he's out. All right, so that is now official. So no Winter today. We expected that. Nolan Winter's status. I don't think he'll play in this tournament, regardless of whether they advance to tomorrow or Sunday. I think the goal was to get him as close to 100% by Thursday or Friday when Wisconsin opens in the NCAA tournament a week from now. By the way, we're inside of 2 weeks from the Brewers' season opening game at American Family Field in Milwaukee. What a fun day. Fun for me to have Nick Bruzewitz on the show. I want to thank our sponsors. We are presented by the Neuroscience Group, neurosciencegroup.com out of the Fox River Valley. And if you are looking for something as it relates to pain relief or just a neurological issue, whether it's brain, spine, or pain care, choose the Neuroscience Group in Northeast Wisconsin, neurosciencegroup.com. We're also presented by M3 Insurance. They help businesses and individuals manage risk, purchase insurance, and provide the right benefits to their employees. Visit them at m3ins.com. Also presented by Potawatomi Sportsbook Hotel and Casino. It's time to play. Pick your game from slots to poker, the best sportsbook anywhere, and more. Enjoy restaurants, bars, and a luxurious hotel just steps from all of the action. Learn more at potawatomi.com. Must be 21 to enter their casino. Also, all our injury updates and the show is brought to you by Habish, and Rotier. 13 locations ensures you get a hometown attorney who understands your life and the impacts of your injury and is personally committed to your recovery. Well, we're 2 weeks into this, and I couldn't be happier about what we've got going on, about the support we've gotten, about how many people are listening. Please share I Love Mondays with Mike Heller wherever you get your podcast. Share with your friends, your other sports-minded, like-minded folks, that they can watch it live on Twitter and YouTube, and they can get it wherever they get their podcasts later on in the day. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I try and do this part to push the right buttons on the way out the door. I think I may be getting a hang of this. We'll talk to you on Monday. Have a fantastic weekend, and thanks for being here.
I love Mondays with Mike Heller.